Made in America, everybody. Made in America. So I want to thank you, and we're going to start talking about a lot of things. We're going to talk about jobs. We have to bring jobs back. We're going to bring jobs back to our country. We don't have the same world right now as we had not so long ago. You know, our world has changed. I see that in France. They have the big soccer tournament, and they're afraid to have it because radical Islamic terrorism, and they're afraid to have it. They don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they'll have it. The police are saying, we can't handle it. And I'm saying to myself, boy, has the world changed, right? And we have to be strong, we have to be vigilant, we have to be smart, we have to be tough and cunning, and we can't let this crap happen. We can't, okay? We can't. We've got weak leaders, folks. We've got weak, ineffective leaders, whether it's on trade, whether it's on the military. Our military is in such a bad state. Everybody, and I've seen it, and I can't believe it, our jet fighters last week, they did documentaries. Our jet fighters were using parts from old planes in the graveyards, you know, the airplane graveyards. We're using parts, stripping those planes, using them on our jet fighters that are 18 and 20 years old. And this is the United States. And you know what, folks? We're going to change. We're going to change, and we're going to change fast. I love Big Ben. Do we love Big Ben? Right? Big Ben. I just spoke to him. He's what a great guy. And he's with us 100%. What a great guy. And a champ. You know, he's a champion. 2 Super Bowls. Remember the one? He grabbed the foot. Grabbed that foot. He was back there. He was falling on his back, and he grabbed the foot. And that would have been a bad day for Pittsburgh if that happened, right? So he's a good champ, and he's a good friend of mine, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy. So I want to say hello to him and a lot of the folks that are friends of his, that are friends of mine. I don't know, I got to know him over the years. And, you know, some people have what's called champion heart, right? Most people don't, I hate to say. But that's what we need. We need that in Washington. It's time. We have people that are incompetent. We have people that don't know what they're doing. They have no clue. They have no clue. Everything's political correct. I mean, you watch what you say something a little bit off, you end up with headlines. It's like a bunch of babies, like a bunch of dumb babies. And believe me, folks, the world is laughing at us. They can't believe what's happening. You look at trade, 300, just take a look at what's going on. Countries all over the world taking advantage of us. Mexico, we have a trade deficit, $58 billion a year, and they're killing us on the border. China, think of it. China, oh, we'll build the wall. Don't worry about it. We'll build the wall. We'll build the wall. We'll build the wall. We'll build that wall. And by the way, the Mexican people are great. And the officials leading Mexico, they're great. It's fine. They're taking advantage of stupid politicians that we have running our country. I don't blame anybody. I blame our politicians. I'm not blaming. Look at China. We have a trade deficit with China of $505 billion a year. All right? $505 billion. How the hell do you come out of that hole and we can make great trade deals? And you know what? They're going to make great trade deals. When I deal on it, those deals are going to be great deals. They're going to be good for us. They'll be just fine for China. But right now, they have rebuilt China with our money, with our jobs, and they laugh at us. And what do? They have no respect for Obama whatsoever. They'll have even less respect for crooked Hillary. She's the worst. All right, she's the worst. They don't respect her. They don't respect her. And what are they doing? So they're taking our jobs, they're taking our money, and they're going out in the South China Sea, and they're building one of the big, great fortresses of the world right in the middle of the ocean, right in the middle of the South China Sea. Massive airport, you know, for military I'm talking about. And guess what, folks? They're not supposed to be doing it, but they have no respect. So they take our money, they take our jobs, and they build these massive fortresses, right? That they're not supposed to be building. And I say to myself, wow, isn't that incredible? And we have such power over China because we're the piggy bank that they're stealing from and destroying. And there are other countries, not just China. China is the biggest and the best abuser. Mexico is going to be a smaller version of China. They already are. So many companies are leaving here and moving to Mexico. You have many companies that left this area. I'm looking at your numbers. I mean, Pittsburgh, you got wiped out, folks. I hate to say it. You got wiped out. Your manufacturing's way down. Your steel is way down. I look at Pittsburgh, and, you know, maybe I'm a little old-fashioned, but I love steel, okay? I love steel. And I love the miners, and we're going to put the miners back to work, okay? We're going to put the miners back to work. Remember Hillary, about a month and a half ago, she said, we're going to put the coal mines and the miners out of business. Isn't that smart? Isn't that wonderful? She's not winning Pennsylvania, let me tell you, folks. She's not winning Pennsylvania. She wants to put the coal miners out of business. You know what? Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm not allowed to use any bad words, by the way. If I use even a little bad word, like I almost used the A word, such a serious, you know. But I almost used it. If I used it, they'd say, these people, the dishonest media, the world's most dishonest people. If I used the A word, they'd say, oh, Trump used foul language, horrible, horrible, horrible. If somebody else uses it, forget it. You know, I was saying before, because we just came up for Virginia, we just came up last night. We were today in Florida. I mean, we're all over the place. It's a beautiful scene. We were in Tampa. We're all over. And I'll tell you what, we have spirit. This is a movement. This is a movement. This is a movement. And this isn't me that's saying it. This is the cover of Time magazine, many, many covers over the last number of months. In fact, I hear we have another one coming up this week. Who knows, good, bad, or indifferent, it's a cover. But you know, it is a movement. And a lot of the pundits, even pundits that absolutely hate me, don't forget, they said he'll never run. He'll never run. And then they said, this is the finest group of Republicans ever to run for office. Before I joined. In fact, I said to my wife, listen, I'm hearing all about how great these people are. How can I possibly do this? But the country's going to hell. We have to do something about it. And I don't see it happening. So I'm watching Fox, and Charles Krauthammer said, before I joined, said this is the single finest group of Republicans perhaps ever to run. Now, maybe he said since like World War II, but that's good enough. But perhaps ever to run for office, one of the finest groups. And I said to my family, I said, you know, I just heard like these are the finest people ever to run. And then one by one, boom, boom. We start off with actually 18, not 17, but that's okay. Whether you call it 18 or 17, it depends on how you define a couple of them, right? But we start off with 18, and then 16. And then 15, and then 13, and then 11, and then 9, and then 7, and 6, and 5, and then, no, not 4, then 3, and then all of a sudden it was over, and they said, what the hell happened? What happened? It's Trump. It's Trump. Crazy. It's crazy. But you know what? The message has gotten there. We want to be a smart country. We want to make smart deals. I mean, you know, some of these guys would say Trump's not conservative. I'm actually very conservative. But they say I'm not conservative because of free trade. I believe in free trade. But for free trade, you have to have smart people on your side. So the other day, I was talking to one of the commentators. Well, what's your stance on free trade? I said, I have no stance on free trade. Well, what do you have on trade? I said, I want to make good deals. They said, what do you mean by that? Very simple. Free trade, not free trade, fair trade. There's 90 different definitions. I want to make good deals. I don't care what you call it. Okay? I don't care what you call it. I'm going to make great deals for our country. That's going to put people back to work. I'm not going to have China dumping their steel all over the United States to ruin our plants and ruin our jobs. You know, they're dumping so much steel, so much steel. And in the end, what it does is it destroys our capacities. And it's not cheaper. It's not going to be cheap. It's going to be much more expensive ultimately. But they're dumping. They're stealing our intellectual property. $300 billion a year. We do nothing about it. We do nothing about it. And we have tremendous power. We have a thing called the power of taxation. If they don't behave, we put a tax on the products that come in. By the way, we make a fortune if we do that. But Obama doesn't do it because he's not smart enough. He doesn't understand business. He believes, oh, we shouldn't tax. Except that they tax us when we go in there. They tax us. And I'm not only talking about them, but they tax us. So it's like a one-way street. They send their stuff in. We try and get it in. I have friends that are in the manufacturing business. Great people, great manufacturers, better than what they have in China. They call me up. They can't do business in China. They can't get their product in. And when they do get it in, they have to pay like a massive tax. We get ripped off. You're right. That's good. You're right. He's right. He knows. We get ripped off. And I'll tell you what, folks. If in November you come and pull the right trigger, we're going to have so much fun together. We're going to have so much fun. We're going to have a lot of fun. And honestly, it's not even going to be hard. So one of the greatest men, a great man, said to me, Donald, you're being too tough on China. You're being too tough on Mexico. You're being too tough. No, he said it, though he meant it. This was a number of months ago. He said, you're being too tough on Japan. Now, Japan sends us hundreds of thousands of cars, millions of cars. They come off the biggest ships you've ever seen. I was in Los Angeles recently. I'm watching. It looks like NASCAR. And by the way, Brian France, the big guy at NASCAR, endorsed Trump. Is that nice? And Don King, big Don King, we all know Don King, right? Whether you like Don or not, he's a hell of a guy. But Don King just endorsed Donald Trump. He loves Donald. And by the way, for a guy that really let us down, this poor Mitt Romney, it's sad. He's going around saying, He's a sad case. He choked. You know what a choke artist is, right? You know what a choke artist, you know when a guy misses the kick, you get rid of him, you bring another one in, right? Because you don't want that thought going in his head too much. He choked. He should have beaten a failed guy. He was a failed president. He should have beaten a failed president. He went away the last month. Where was he? I even called his people. I said, get him on television. Say what you want about Obama. He was on Jay Leno. He was on David Letterman. He was all over the place. And Romney was sitting at home not doing anything. What the hell happened? I asked my people, what happened to him? Where is he? Oh, I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to win. I said, get on television. You got 1 month. And the guy choked like a dog. And then he says, Donald Trump may have racial tendencies. He called today, he's a trickle-down racist. That's one I've never heard, a trickle-down. And a misogynist. He doesn't know what a misogynist is. He's a trickle-down racist and a misogynist. Now I know why I lost. I mean, you talk about communication. So, no, the guy was on yesterday, CNN. And I said to myself, it's absolutely pathetic. He lost, he choked, like a dog he choked, and now it's time for somebody else. We're going to win, folks. We're going to win. We're not going to be choking. I don't choke. I don't choke. You know, I backed John McCain, good guy. That was a tough race because, you know, a lot of bad things were happening. I'm not sure if Abraham Lincoln could have won that. But I backed John McCain, big league, and he lost. I backed Mitt Romney, and he choked, and he lost. And I said, this time, folks, we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to win. We're going to win. We're winning. We're going to win, folks. We're not going to put up with this stuff. And we are going to win. You know, one of the great journalists actually called me. Happens to be liberal, but that's okay. Every once in a while, that's okay. Do we agree? Who cares? Who cares? You know, we're going to make America great for everybody. Not for conservative, not for Republican, not for Democrat, not for liberal. We're going to make it great for everybody, folks. We're going to make it great. But he called me and he said, you know, you've done something that nobody else has ever done. I said, what's that? He said, what you have achieved in the world of politics never been done before. And honestly, Bill O'Reilly, who's a very tough guy and a very smart guy, said it's one of the greatest, it is the greatest, actually, political phenomena that he's ever seen. Not bad, right? I mean, you know. And others. Britt Hume said it and he hates me. This guy hates me. The level of hatred from some of these people is incredible. And a lot of it's because they were wrong. You know, they were wrong. They said he'll never run. He's never going to run. You know, they get paid a lot of money to be prognosticators, right? Donald Trump will never run. The next day I announce I'm running. Then they say, well, Donald Trump has decided to run, but he will never do very well because we have all of these great candidates. So I decide to run, and I start off, you know, start off like everyone else. You start off with nothing. And then the first week I went to 8. He said, well, he has reached the ceiling. He'll always be able to get 8, but he has reached the ceiling. Next week the polls come out, he's at 14. Well, you know, there's surprising, but 14 is his absolute ceiling. There is nothing that he could do to go higher than 14. Then I go to 20, then I go to 28, 32, 38, 48, 51, then I go to 55, then in New York I go to 62, then in California I go to 78%. And you know what? Something that nobody talks about because they don't want to. If I was a Democrat, they'd talk about it plenty. In the history of the Republican Party, it's pretty long, right? You know, Abe Lincoln, we're talking about a long time. In the history of the Republican Party, I got the most votes. You got the most votes, not me. I'm the messenger. I'm a good messenger, you have to say that, right? Doing a good job. I'm just the messenger. But in the history of the Republican Party, Dwight D. Eisenhower, great guy. You know, he won the Second World War, although I think other people had something to do with it, in all fairness. But he was given a lot of credit for winning the Second World War. He runs for president. I beat him. Richard Nixon, we beat Richard Nixon. Ronald Reagan, who we love, we beat Ronald Reagan. We beat Bush, we beat everybody. In the history of the Republican Party, we all together, the movement, got the most votes of anybody in the history of the primaries. But I don't mean by like we beat them out, oh, we edged them. We edged them by like a couple of votes. No. By millions of votes. By millions of votes. By millions and millions of votes. You know, it's amazing. And the Republican Party, I'm not going to take full credit for it, but I'll take 99.9. The Republican Party got more votes and had the biggest increase, about 70% increase over what it was 4 years ago when we had that loser Mitt Romney representing us. 70% more people. And the people at the polls, you know, a lot of people, they work the polls for years, for 40 years. I've seen them, men, women, they're at the polls. And I'll remember in South Carolina and New Hampshire. New Hampshire, I love, you know, I mean, these are states where I did really well early. And it was an amazing thing, the feeling I have. And by the way, I'm going to make a pretty big speech on Monday, so stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. I'm going to do it in New Hampshire because that was the home of my first victory. I went to New Hampshire. Bush was favored to win. You know, he's from that whole thing. No, low energy, folks, low energy. And he's not living up to his obligation because when he signed the pledge, it said, I will do this, meaning I will endorse whoever it is. It was me, and he says, I won't do it. So what he's doing is, you know, honestly, it's very dishonorable. But Bush was favored to win, except that I won in a landslide. And we won in Massachusetts. Now, it's nice that Tom Brady likes me. That helps, right? We got almost 50% of the vote. Think of it. We got almost 50% of the vote with like 8 or 9 candidates in there. Now, you know, I never got credit for that because when these pundits who hate me, some of them are okay, but most of them hate me. Most of them maybe. But when these pundits go out, right, they go out and they say, Donald Trump only got 34% of the vote. They don't say there were 15 candidates. Actually getting 34% of the vote with 15 people in the race is better than when I got 78% in California. And just remember this, with California, they had a lot of names on the board. You know, it's not like it's totally over. They could vote for anybody they want because all the names, or many of the names are on. So when you get all of these numbers, but all the time I had to listen to this because I think it's the largest field in the history of elections, the 17 or 18 people that started. So I was competing against all of these governors and senators and very capable people like Dr. Ben Carson, who's a great guy, by the way. Great guy. And a very capable guy, but I was competing against Ben. And he endorsed me right after the whole deal. And Chris Christie endorsed me, and he's been great. We've got great endorsements. We have great. By the way, we have so many great. Dana White endorsed me, you know, from UFC. And I mean, we have I'll tell you what, I would put Bobby Knight endorsed me, Bobby Knight, and Lou Holtz, and Digger, and so many people. By the way, the Bobby Knight endorsement had to be one of the great endorsements ever. So I win New York in the primaries. And they said, oh, he's going to do great in Pennsylvania. So they're sort of conceding Pennsylvania, a place that we love, right? I went to school in Pennsylvania. I went to Penn. I went to the Wharton School of Finance, maybe the hardest school to get into in the country, the Wharton School of Finance. And I was very good, really good. But I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and I spent years in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia's not Pittsburgh, right? I know that. But we love Philadelphia, too. Brotherly love. And we do love Pennsylvania, and that's where it all comes together, right? But so I've been in this state, and I know this state very well. And this is a great, great state. So I win Pennsylvania big, big. And then I win Connecticut big. In fact, they just did a poll in Connecticut. Republicans are not supposed to even waste their time going to Connecticut. I love Connecticut. A poll just came in where I'm a few points behind, and people are saying that's incredible. A poll just came down in Pennsylvania, by the way, where we're leading. A poll just came out in Ohio where we're leading. A poll just came out in the great state of Florida. We're leading by 2 points, and we haven't even started campaigning yet. You know why we're leading? Because people are sick and tired of the stupidity that's going on with our country. They're tired of it. They're tired of it. We're going to have a great country, and we're going to have a country that's unified. We're going to have a country. I thought one thing about Obama. I thought that Obama would be a cheerleader for the country. That's the one thing. I never thought he was going to be the president in terms of greatness. I thought he'd be a great unifier, a great cheerleader for the country. He is a great divider. The country has practically never been so divided as it is now. And we're going to bring everybody together, folks. White, black, we're going to bring everybody together. We're bringing our country together. The richer, the poorer, everybody. And you know, one of the reasons we're going to bring it together, it's the old story. It's called jobs. Because I'm not going to let other countries take our jobs, like Carrier, where they move their factory to Mexico, they fire everybody. And Ford, where they take tremendous numbers of people out of our system and they build these massive plants in Mexico. And so many other countries, you know, it's funny, so many of these companies, they're run and owned by friends of mine. So now I'm getting calls. They say, Don, please don't mention my company. Please don't mention my company. And I'm running out of companies now. I know so many of these guys. But you know, when people are friends, you don't mention their companies, right? Should I or not? Should I? Yeah. I won't. No, you got to be loyal. So, but by the way, there's no shortage, I can tell you. The list is a mile long of companies that are leaving. Look at this area. In 10 years, you've lost 45–50% of your manufacturing jobs. Who ever heard of a thing like that? I mean, first of all, NAFTA is like one of the worst things ever to happen to our country from an economic standpoint. And who signed NAFTA? Bill Clinton. And a lot of people said, oh, we had pretty good economic times with Clinton. Well, we didn't have good times, if you remember. There were a lot of bad times. First of all, he was impeached. There was a big impeachment mess. It was a mess, just like it will be with Hillary. With Hillary, it'll be worse. But remember this, a thing called impeachment. Remember the turmoil and the holy mackerel. But just think, we did okay. But the people that followed him, because of that horrible thing he signed, got killed because NAFTA stripped the jobs out of this country. I toured New York, I toured Connecticut, I toured Pennsylvania, I toured all over the place. I was in Maryland. I look at places that were vibrant 20 years ago with incredible factories, and those factories, you could buy them for $1, you can buy them for nothing. And actually, from a real estate standpoint, you should do it, because if I win, those factories are going to be put back to work again, believe me. Believe me. Although they're in pretty bad shape, they'll probably just rip them down, but we're going to have our jobs back, okay? Not such a bad investment. I just saw this recently, it's in one of the papers, that cashing in, illegal immigrants get $1,261 more welfare than American families. They get think of it. This is illegals, $5,692 versus $4,431. So they get more money than American families get. Where are we? What are we doing? What are we doing? Now, what are we doing? You know, they're all screaming, build a wall. It's not just a wall, but we are going to build a wall. You know, recently the president of Mexico from a few years ago, Vicente Fox, he was on television. Well, you know what happened? And he threw around the F-bomb. And he said, we will not finance or give the money to build the wall. But he said it differently, because he said, we will not pay for that F-bomb wall. The F-bomb, he used the F-bomb on live television on CNN. I said, whoa, he's going to be, it's going to be so bad tomorrow. Wait till you see, nobody wrote about it. Can you imagine if I used the F-bomb? Would that be? That would be the electric chair, right? They'd give Trump the electric chair. Okay, if I used the F-bomb. So he said, we will not, under any circumstance. This is the way he said. He was going crazy, sitting in a chair. I thought he was going to have, look, I won't say. But he was going crazy. But we will not pay for that F-bomb wall. And I said, whoa, is he in trouble? But then I said to myself, hey, I'm happy. Because 2 years ago, he says, we will never allow that wall to be built. So now at least he knows it's going to be built. And the reason, look, this is very important. The reason that they're going to pay for it, we're going to have a great relationship with Mexico, much better than we have now. We don't have a good relationship. When Sergeant Tamburisi, remember Sergeant Tamburisi? He made a wrong turn. He had a lot of difficulties. When Sergeant Tamburisi was there, they kept him in the worst prison. They treated him horribly. They should have let him go. He had difficulties. They should have let him go. And they didn't let him go. And I don't even know if anybody called. I tell you what, I would have been on the phone the first night. I would have called the president of Mexico. I say, let him go. Let him go. I don't think Obama ever called. The guy was in there for, a long time. And I helped him out. And Greta helped him out, I have to say. Greta Van Susteren helped him out. And I helped him out. But relationship is you call him up, you say, do me a favor, guy made a mistake, let him out. Because the people were going crazy. And how about this? Bergdahl, right? Sergeant Bergdahl. Sergeant Bergdahl. Here's the way we deal, folks. We get Bergdahl, a total traitor, where probably 5 or 6 people were killed trying to find him. Definitely 5, probably 6 killed going out trying to get him back. So we get Bergdahl, and they get 5 of their worst killers that they've been after and trying to get out of prison for 9 years. So we get 1, they get 5. Those 5 now, I saw just the other night, they're back in the field trying to kill everybody, including us. Folks, we got to be so much tougher and so much smarter. I call him the 5-for-1 president. And how about the deal with Iran? We get nothing. We gave them $150 billion. And it was only after that, remember they took our sailors, our 10 sailors, and they would have kept them forever, except they wanted the money. It was due the following day, right? So stupid they're not. So they humiliated us. They humiliated the sailors. Then they let him go. And I remember after a few days, and Kerry said, we would like to thank Iran. They got $150 billion. All right? Who the hell would have kept them? So they would have kept them, believe me. And that should have never happened. We had hostages. We should never have negotiated while those hostages were held. We should have said, gone into the room, say, release your hostages. If you don't release the hostages, the deal's out. Get up, walk out. They're great negotiators, the Iranians. The Persians are great negotiators, always have been. You know, you're not supposed to generalize. I'll generalize, okay? They've always been great negotiators. And we've got a guy who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Secretary Kerry, President Obama. President Obama is incompetent, okay? He's incompetent. Remember that. He's incompetent. Now, yeah, we have a president who's just doesn't have it. He doesn't have it. So here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. And what should have happened then? You get up and you walk the art of the deal. I mean, you know, give me a break. We never walked once. You know, did you ever see that negotiation? We would like to have the following, the Americans. No. They go, no. Oh, okay, we'll agree with you. Everything was no, no, no. Okay, we'll take it. We'll take it. Never walked, never left. They should have said we have to have our prisoners back. Say, look, folks, they don't help you. Good for us. Our people are angry. Good thing for us. You got to release them. They were so no. They're going to say no. We're not going to do it. And then you say, sorry, we can't negotiate. You leave the room. You get on the plane. You double up the sanctions. By the time you land in Washington, you can turn around the plane. The prisoners or hostages will be released. 100%. Like 100%. You know. I hate to say the art of the deal because that's so simple. Who would even write about it, right? Who would even have to write about it? So, and then you start negotiating. And the other thing, I negotiate 2 points. And then nuclear is very important. I love negotiating but you have to get a good deal. Not a deal that's going to destroy Israel, which this deal will do. This deal is so destructive for Israel and our country that how they could have allowed it to happen is incredible, okay? How they could have allowed it to happen. So, I want 2 things. I want our prisoners back before we start. They would have been back 3 years ago. That was the longest negotiation. You know, usually a negotiation that takes that long is no good. That's number one. But, you know, we sat there just for years just giving them everything they wanted. How about this? They were dancing all over Iran at the deal before it was signed. Who the hell signs a deal when the whole country is saying how stupid you are getting this deal before you signed it? But they wanted to sign the deal. Horrible for our allies, horrible for Israel, very bad for us. We've created a real power. The second thing I wouldn't have given them, I would have never given them the $150 billion back. Would have never. And I would have done it, you know, my father was a great guy. He was a builder in Brooklyn and Queens. And he said to me, I learned a lot. And I'd sit at his knee, and I learned by osmosis. He didn't really teach me, I just learned. You know, he'd be on the phone with a plumber or with a sheetrock guy or with a pipe fitter. And he'll say, no, you got a lower price, can't do it, got to lower. You know, I grew up with that. It was like in your brain. And now we're doing the old post office. We're way below budget, way ahead of schedule. Everybody wanted it in Washington, D.C. The old post office in Pennsylvania Avenue, right near the White House. I always said, if I don't make it, folks, I'm still going to be living in Washington, D.C., okay? And it's going to be a great building. It's going to be, I think we're going to make it, right? What, don't you think? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you. I really think we are going to make it. And I think we're going to make it big league. And we're going to turn our country around. By the way, the old post office. So the old post office right now is almost 2 years ahead of schedule. And I told my people, don't say 2 years, because it's not a believable number. It's almost 2 years. But I said it's not, but just say it's a year ahead of schedule. Because 2 years, it almost sounds too much. But so I'll say it, we're 2 years, but we're a year ahead of schedule. And we're under budget, and the quality is much higher. I think it's going to be one of the great hotels of the world. It's going to be Trump International Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to open in September, but I think we're going to have probably our opening ceremony toward the end of October. I don't want to have it too early. But think of this. We're under budget and ahead of schedule. Do you ever hear that from our government, right? You ever hear that? Never hear that from our government. So, a lot of things are happening. The run has been amazing. The crowds, the momentum, and the movement has been amazing. No matter where we go, we have 20,000, 25,000 people. In Mobile, Alabama, we had 35,000 people. We have by far the biggest crowds, far bigger than Bernie Sanders. And by the way, Bernie was second, I have to say, but it wasn't even close. But, you know, during this whole campaign, and I was saying a number of weeks ago, I think weeks ago, we had a crowd, 17,000, Bernie had 3 on the same night, different cities. So we had 17. And I had the folks at CNN, actually, and they were saying, this is so-and-so from CNN. I'm at a Donald Trump rally, and everything's good, and you got to see the spirit in the room. People are going crazy. They're standing ovation. There were seats, and nobody was sitting down. The people were going crazy, and you listen, it sounds like there's 200 people standing there, right? And that's the end, and now over to you. And then Bernie Sanders rally. So they didn't mention 17,000 people, right? Or 18,000, whatever it was. So a lot. Now they go to Bernie Sanders. We're at the Bernie Sanders rally. It's a massive crowd of 3. They have to have at least 3,000 people. It's unbelievable. Look at all the people. So I have 17,000 people, and it's like falling asleep for the reporters. He has 3,000 people, and they're talking about the 3,000 people. Let me tell you, folks, as Republicans, and the more conservative you get, the harder it gets, it is so unfair, the dishonesty of the media, the dishonesty of those people back there. It is so unfair. It is so unfair. But the beauty of it is that the people are really smart. They get it. I mean, they really understand what's going on. It's an incredible thing to see. They get it. That's why I love my protest. You don't see any protesters. Are there any protesters? Because I love the protesters, because the only time the cameras ever turn and show how massive these audiences are, the only time, I mean, it's like an incredible thing, is when we have a protest. Do we have a protester anywhere, please? Sometimes, you know what I'm going to start doing? Taking friendly people, putting them up in corners of a room and letting them protest, okay? That's the only time. I didn't think they could move the cameras. I thought they were maybe modern equipment, it's fixed. And then about my third speech, we had a protester, bad guy, nasty, loud, started swinging at people. And when my people swung back, it was like, oh, my people are terrible, right? My people are terrible. But this was a loud guy. And then all of a sudden, it was in like a strange corner of the room, and those cameras that I didn't think could move, I thought they were fixed wing. All of a sudden, they're bent like a pretzel. They're getting the protester from every angle, every shot. Now, there's tremendous dishonesty, folks. There's tremendous, tremendous dishonesty. But with all of that, with all of the stuff that goes on, and all of the phony reporting and dishonest reporting, the people are getting it. And that's why we're being covered like nobody, no place in the world. What's going on is being covered like no place in the world. You know, the Republican Party was a little bit staid. Is that a nice way of saying? A little bit staid. Stayed. You know how to spell stayed, right? And the Republican Party was not exactly the most exciting place to be. And this year we're up 70, and the Democrats are down 32 or 33 in the primaries. Okay, we're up 70%, and they're down 32. Think of it. Think of it. So what's happening is an incredible thing. Now, I have to say this. I say it to the leaders of the Republican Party. Folks, you got to get tougher. You got to be tougher. You got to be strong. We've had a lot of losses. We've lost a lot of these presidential elections over the last long period of time. You've got to get strong. You've got to get tough. You've got to be smart, or you're not going to have a lot of victories. And I'll be honest, I'm talking about for them, because I think I'm going to win anyway. I really think I can win. I don't want to do it that way. Do you understand what I mean? I'm not even sure it's not better for me. But I'd like to see the Republican leadership get very strong, very sharp, very smart, and be cool. You got to be cool. But we're winning either way. We are going to win either way. And we're going to set this country back on course. And we're not going to protect all of these nations where we're subsidizing the military protection of massive nations that are making fortunes of money And they're paying us a fraction of what it costs. Can you imagine, as an example, Japan, great people, I love it. But we subsidize Japan. And yet they're sending us cars. You know, we send them wheat. We send them beef. They send us millions of cars. And we send them beef. And they don't want the beef. Half the time, they want to send it back. They don't even want it because their farmers don't want it. You talk about a trade imbalance. Take a look at the trade imbalance between the United States and Japan. One of the great trade imbalances anybody has ever seen. It's cars versus a piece of Kobe steak. You know why Kobe steak? Because it gets back and forth so much that by the time it finally gets in Japan, it's rotted. And that's what Kobe beef is, right? It's old beef that they charge a lot of money for, a pretty sad way. But let me just tell you, folks, let me just tell you, we've got to be smart. We can no longer subsidize all of the, we subsidize Germany. We subsidize Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. Now, before the oil went down, they're still making a lot, but before the oil went, they were making $1 billion a day. And we're subsidizing them. We have our military. We are paying the rent on military bases. We're paying rent. They're charging us rent. And we're over there to protect them. And honestly, I have many Saudi friends, obviously many German friends. Obviously, I have a lot of people from Japan and other countries, South Korea. We have 28,000 soldiers on the line between North and South Korea. And every time, potentially the madman raises his head or opens his mouth, we send our ships and our planes and we have everybody ready. They got to pay us something we don't get. And if you, can you imagine if these countries paid just a fair price for this? You're talking about a whole different United States. This isn't 40 years ago, and it's not 20 years ago. We are stone cold broke. We owe $19 trillion. Nobody even knows what a trillion is. They don't know. I have a smart guy, made millions and millions and maybe billions of dollars on Wall Street. I say, define trillion for me quickly. He said, let's see, it's a blah, 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 you know. You know how much money this is? We owe 19 trillion, going up to 21 trillion because of the omnibus budget, which was passed. Which, by the way, allows Syrian refugees in. We have no idea where they are, who they are, where they come from. Excuse me, folks, they're coming to Pittsburgh, you just don't know it, okay? They're coming to Pittsburgh, you don't know it. They're being put all over the country just like they want to be. And who knows? You know, we talk about Trojan horse. We talk about Trojan horse. And maybe it's a Trojan horse, and maybe it's not. But we have enough problems in this country. When you look at Paris, when you look at San Bernardino, when you look at all these different places, a couple of things I have to tell you. We're going to give you a massive tax decrease and get this country back to work for business and for middle. Hillary Clinton is going to raise your taxes very substantially, possibly to 55 or 60%. That is going to be the end. She's going to raise your taxes. And you know what? She has no plan. She doesn't talk about it. She won't talk about it. She's got to raise them to at least 55%. I'm lowering taxes substantially for the middle class who are being run out of our country, and I'm lowering them for business. Big league. Another thing. We're getting rid of Common Core. We're going to bring education local. Local education. We're repealing and replacing Obamacare. 100%. Disaster. Obamacare is a disaster. Hillary Clinton wants to abolish the Second Amendment. In other words, she wants to take your guns away, folks. Now, the NRA, National Rifle Association, just endorsed me. I think it's the early endorsement they've ever given to a candidate. So we are going to stand totally strong, totally strong. They want to abolish it. They literally want to take your guns away. You know, if in San Bernardino or in Paris, Paris is probably the toughest place in the world to have a gun. So these thugs walk in and they go boom, 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 kill 130, hundreds in the hospital, still in the hospital. They'll never, you know, they'll never be the same. Just horrific injuries. And if we had a couple of like the folks here, like this guy here with the Trump hat on, the blue Trump hat, right there, the handsome man with a beautiful head of hair. Look at a beautiful head of hair on that guy. What are you wearing a hat for? If we had a couple of people, if in San Bernardino or let's say Paris, they were in there and they had a gun right around here or a gun strapped around their ankle, and the bullets were flying in the opposite direction also, number one, they probably wouldn't have even gone there if they knew there were guns. Okay, remember that. Don't underestimate that. But number two, assuming they did and they started playing games, the carnage is going to be one hell of a lot smaller than it ended up being. So we are going to protect our Second Amendment. Hillary Clinton wants to abolish your Second Amendment. And I'll tell you what, on that issue alone, I think we win the election. I really do. I think we win the election. So a lot of things have happened. Our country doesn't win anymore. Our military, as we said, is depleted. But we're going to start taking care of it, and we're going to knock the hell out of ISIS. You're right. We're going to knock that. We have no choice. I didn't want to go in Iraq. I said I didn't want to go from the beginning. I didn't want. You're going to destabilize the Middle East. But you know what? And that's exactly what happened. I've been a good prognosticator. You know, about a month ago, I was asked on CNN by Wolf Blitzer. I was asked about NATO. Now, I'm a businessman. I'm not like asked about NATO too often. It's not like, oh, gee, I'm the old-time expert, but I have a lot of common sense. And I know NATO, and I understand NATO. I said, what do you think about NATO? Something to that effect. And I said, well, let me tell you. Number one, it's obsolete because it doesn't really cover properly terrorism. Number two, you have countries in there, because I read this someplace, that aren't paying what they're supposed to pay, and some aren't paying practically at all. And we're protecting them. And if something happens to them, what do? Go into World War III over a country that's not even paying us. And the next day in the press, oh, that's terrible. What a terrible answer. He doesn't like NATO. Oh, that's a bunch of phony people. And then about 2 weeks after I said it, some people, you know, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? All of a sudden, people that were experts in NATO were saying, you know, Trump had a point. It is obsolete. And we don't really cover terror. And we don't even have the right countries in there if you're talking terror, because it's a different kind of terror. And Trump's right. And you know what else? A lot of these countries aren't paying. They're not paying. They owe us 2% of GDP or 3% of GDP. They're not paying. Because we don't, it's like in the real estate business, you know, real estate, we say they're delinquent. They're not paying, they're delinquent. They're not paying. We have to get somebody to ask for the money. They got to pay. I mean, we're protecting them, they don't pay. And all of a sudden, people are saying, hey, that was good. All right, that was the end of that. Then 3 days ago, on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, NATO to open up massive terror operation. And I don't even know that much about NATO. It's called instinct, it's called common sense. That's what you need. And they don't give me credit. They only said in the article, like a little half sentence, Donald Trump complained about it also. Oh, great, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Because of me, and they've taken like one of their top generals, and they put him in charge. Good thing to do, by the way. Good thing to do. But I'm the one. If I didn't give that answer, and then the answer got a lot of heat, and then it got a lot of praise, but now they open front page of the Wall Street Journal, whole big article. NATO to operate and open major terror group, meaning to oversee. And one of their top people is put in charge. That's common sense, folks. That's common sense. Remember I said take the oil? I didn't want to be in Iraq, but I said when you leave, take the oil. Well, you know who's going to get the oil. ISIS already has the oil. And Iran's going to get the oil. You think Iran made a good deal with their deal? They made an even better deal because we practically handed them Iraq. For years, they would fight each other, right? They'd fight. Their military was almost identical. They'd go 10 feet this way, 10 feet that way, 10 feet. Then they'd take a break for 2 years. Then they'd fight. That's what they do, they fight. We found that out. They go and they fight, and this went on for decades. Then we decapitate, stupidly, we decapitate one of the militaries. And now Iran, as sure as you're standing here, Iran is taking over Iraq. We gave it to them. We handed them. They wanted to do it for forever. And we handed them. That's better than the Iran deal that our very incompetent Secretary of State signed with them. So now Iran is going to end up with Iraq. They have Yemen, and they don't want Yemen, but they love the border to Saudi Arabia. And let me just tell you, I said, Saudi Arabia doesn't pay us nearly enough, right? Boy, would I do well. I'd say, fellas, I saw that magnificent 777, Boeing 777. You guys never want to fly commercial, do you? Because you know what? If we ever left Saudi Arabia, that thing would be gone so fast. So fast. And all you need is somebody that knows how to negotiate. They got to pay us for our services. They got to pay us. And if they pay us, we have a whole different country. If these people, and we're not doing it as a threat, and you have to be prepared to walk. It's possible we have to walk. And don't forget, we now have energy capacity that we're not even using because of all the restrictions and all of the problems. We now have, so we don't need these countries that we've died for and spent trillions of dollars for. So they got to help us out. They got to help us out. And just in closing, I'll say this. Look, when I decided to do it, I didn't need this. It's 140 degrees up here. That's the end of this suit. Soaking wet. Does anybody want my jacket? You don't want it. I don't need this. But I'm having a lot of fun. I'm getting to know the people of this country. We have unbelievable people. This country, you know, I say, make America great again. It's going to be make America great again for everybody. And it's also going to be, we can make America, I really believe this, greater than ever before. You know, when we had the debates, I didn't know anything about debating. And yet every single poll, Drudge, great guy, Time Magazine, all of Slate, I don't know, all these 7, 8 different polls. Every single poll had Trump winning every single debate. Every poll, every debate. I was on center stage, and I didn't know. I mean, Ted Cruz was this great student from Harvard and Princeton, and he was a debate champion. And they had me winning every debate. Okay, I don't want to get into, you know what? I like Ted Cruz. I just like, well, he's got to sign, you know, I don't care if people endorse me, but I do want them, when they sign the pledge, they got to sort of live up to what they sign, because then I feel differently. But we did great. But here's what happened. They go out, they go on Fox, they get 24 million people, the largest in the history of cable, right? Then a few weeks later, CNN goes on with a debate. The largest in the history of CNN. They cover wars, they cover big events. The debate. They have 23 million people on CNN, largest in the history of CNN, with all they've covered, and with their long and very incredible history. So they have the two biggest events in the history of cable television. Now, I'm not going to say it's because of me, but let's say if I wasn't in, maybe, what would you have, 2 people watching? Okay. So, something's happening out there. It's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I'm telling you. There's a movement going on that's incredible. One of the pollsters say, any number that Donald Trump gets, you can add something to it. Because a lot of time, it's a very embarrassing statement. You know, it goes both ways. Sometimes you'll have this stiff who's a nice person. And everybody wants to say, yes, I'll vote for him. But then they get in, they vote for somebody else. With me, it's just the opposite. They say, when he goes into the vote, they won't tell us because they don't want us to know that we're voting for Donald Trump. Somebody said he's too tough. Hillary says, I don't like his temperament. She said, I don't like his tone. We have people chopping off the heads of Christians and anybody else that gets in the way in the Middle East. We have people killing people at the border like you've never seen before. The crime is far greater than anybody knows. I was right about that, by the way. And we have all of these things happening. And she says, I don't like his tone. Well, let me tell you, a book was written by a Secret Service agent, and they talked about Hillary. And they said, she's a horror show. She's got the worst temperament they've ever seen. She's a maniac. And if she was ever president, it would be a disaster. So, folks, True. True. So true. So, folks, we don't win anymore, but we're going to win. We're going to win with our military. We're going to win on trade. We're going to win at the border. We're going to win with health care. We're going to win with education. We're going to save our Second Amendment. We are going to win again, folks. We are going to win so much. I won't go through the whole exercise, which I love doing and you love hearing, but you know what? I won't do it. I'm just telling you, she says, do it, please. I'm just telling you, we are going to win so much. You're going to be so proud of your president, and you're going to be so proud, much more importantly, you're going to be so proud of your country. We're going to win. We're going to reduce your taxes. We're going to save your Social Security. We're going to win at every single front. I love you, Pittsburgh. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. Thank you.